Thank you for your attention. This is the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast with Corey Shapiro. We're up to eBook summary chapter 4, which has become less defensive. You know the situation, you're triggered, you want to defend yourself in an argument, then things just escalate. So let's discuss a 5-pronged process to become less defensive and more understanding. Prong 1 is to offer emotional support. First to yourself, like the plain method, take care of yourself first, and then to your spouse. You're doing this all silently. Prong number 2, you get them to say yes, even on uncontested issues. You're doing that to build goodwill. You start with the small stuff, then you go to the hard stuff. All right, prong number 3, this is a key one. You listen through the noise for common values, for shared values. And as a divorce lawyer, I would say at least 95% of what I do all day is really just cutting through the noise. So let's say, one spouse is all concerned with anxiety about a high amount of maintenance. The other spouse is so concerned about a low amount of maintenance. I mean, they're dealing with the same issues just from different sides. So you can think, well, what's going on here? What are the values? The values I see is, well, they have something in common financially. They have a financial situation they're concerned about. So when you finally respond, this is prong 4. You did all that pre-work. You can respond in a neutral way, something they can't fight you on. For example, how about if we're dealing with that maintenance issue? It seems you're both concerned with your financial situation. They both have to say yes to that, right? Yeah, of course we're concerned. All right, prong number 5, ask questions instead of making demands. This is a big shift. The question is inviting the other side to help you with your problem. You're not saying it in an accusatory way. It's really more how you say it versus what you say, but listen to my tone. And you have to use statements that are not contested. So for example, assume this is true. Let's say monthly expenses on your budget is $5,000 a month. That's a true statement. Let's say that your spouse earns net of taxes $4,000 a month, right? So right there, you could see there's $1,000 shortfall. So the question could be, how do you calculate that you're requesting $5,000 a month in maintenance, even though your shortfall is only $1,000 a month? Okay, you see that? You're inviting them to explain themselves. Now, it may be a right brain emotional response that may have nothing to do with reality, or it may be a left brain response. Maybe my expenses are going up. Maybe I want to have a cushion. There's a lot there. The point is, let them help you understand where they're coming from. All right, let's move on to the quote. Is from fashion icon Coco Chanel. Don't spend time beating on a wall hoping it will transform into a door. Coco knows what she's talking about because, I don't know if a lot of people know this, her mother passed away when she was 12, and her father placed her in an orphanage, which I'm sure was a rough experience for her. She overcame those challenges in her childhood, at least professionally, and she became an icon. All right, divorce news. This one is interesting. You'll see in the show notes the court's decision. Basically, there's an attorney in Boston who represented herself. I think she might have been a divorce attorney. She represented herself in a divorce. I'm actually not sure if she was a divorce attorney or not. But I know she was an attorney. She represented herself in a divorce. And this is what's confusing to me. She submitted false statements about her financials, and she disobeyed multiple court orders. Did you hear me? Multiple court orders. Courts don't like that. They want to be in control. They don't want you to be in control. And then she was suspended for 18 months on the trial level. She had the gall to take an appeal. Not sure why. All these justices are friends. You think they're going to overturn someone who didn't listen to a trial court judge? I don't think so. It was upheld. Now, maybe if this attorney was here on this podcast, she might say, listen, what other chance did I have? I was out of work for 18 months. And my question is, I really don't understand what is going on. Anyone going to court, please listen to the court. Don't get on the court's bad side and don't submit falsified personal financial information. It is not going to help you at all. All right, divorce question. How to avoid paying maintenance? Well, how to avoid paying maintenance? I mean, I guess the joke is obviously just don't get married. But more seriously, let's back up a little bit. Let's say you are married and you're asked this question. I want to know where you are because it depends on the stage. I mean, you can do a lot with pre-divorce planning, but let's just get right into it. Let's say you're just in a divorce. You did no pre-divorce planning. What's going to likely happen, depending on your state, is they use a formula. They have a guidelines. You can Google if your state has that. You can talk to your attorneys. In New York, the guidelines is they take $203,000 of income, $203,000 of income. Okay. And that amount is going to go up. That's called the cap. So they find out the combined income. They find out what spouse makes what. They put those numbers in a formula and it shoots out a number that one spouse, usually the moneyed spouse, has to pay the other. That's in maintenance. Now, can they go above that? Yes, they can go above that for a variety of reasons. Obviously, it could be the income's so high, but other reasons could be health, age, standard of living, really any factor the court finds just and proper. So how do you know if you're going to pay guidelines or non-guidelines? Well, I think a strong argument, what I've seen, is standard of living and debt. Standard of living and debt. Those are the two things I see a lot of. There's other arguments, but this happens so often. So let's just take an example. Let's pretend we're the judge and we have three cases. They all have combined income, combined parental income, two parents or two spouses, let's say, of $300,000, right? So in example one, $300,000, and they spend all their money on lifestyle. They don't have much assets. They don't have much debt. Let's say no debt. In that case, the court may go above the guidelines because it seems they used a lot of their income to support their lifestyle. Remember, I told you standard of living is big. All right, what about example number two? Let's say it's the same $300,000 in combined income, but now they have $35,000 in credit card debt. Well, what do you think the judge is going to do there? I would say the judge probably not going to go as high because they're living beyond their means. And judge doesn't want to support that. All right, what about example three? This one, they still make a combined $300,000, but now they only spend like 10% of their income on their lifestyle or maybe on their big expenses like housing. Let's say they started building wealth. They have investments and retirement accounts. So they live a restrained lifestyle. In that case, the judge might just do the guidelines because the standard of living doesn't support a higher amount. All right, now that you have the background, what can you do? As I foreshadowed earlier on, that's pre-divorce plan. So much you can do pre-divorce. And early, in your marriage, once you find out this may not go the distance, you can change your job, you can reduce your income. You just can't do all that stuff in contemplation of a divorce. There has to be a track record. You can live modestly. You don't have to live extravagantly. All right, if you don't have that pre-divorce plan option, you could argue the other side is underemployed. They should be making more money. Hard to do, though, early in the case when a lot of these applications are made for maintenance. You can also try to be creative. One creative idea, assuming the attorneys are working together, is that, say, you could offer life insurance. That could be a big windfall for someone. For much more time, you would offer that life insurance. Even if it's term, let's say even in like a 6-year marriage, you can offer it for 10 years or 20 years. If cash flow is not so important, that might work. All right. All else fails, I would focus on duration. Seems to be underutilized. A lot of states have these advisory schedules. Obviously, it's whatever the judge wants it to be. And whatever the judge wants it to be depends, I think, in part on how the court views you, right? As a litigant, are you behaving? How are you being as a co-parent if you have children? But be that as it may, in New York, for example, if you have a marriage up to 15 years, it's 15 to 30%. right? If you have a more than 20-year marriage, it's 35 to 50%. So there's a lot of room there to play. So a lot of things you can do. It's obviously fact specific, but I hope this background helps. Okay, we're moving on to announcements. If you have questions for the podcast, you can go to question.gettingdivorced.org. You can submit a question from the browser. You can also give us feedback, and we do enjoy receiving feedback at gettingdivorced.org. All right, positive perspective. Coco Chanel is on my mind. I Wikipedia'd her. You know, she came up with that little black dress. They call it the LBD. The LBD was intended, I think it was designed in the Depression, last century's Depression, in the 1920s. It was intended to be long-lasting, versatile, and widely accessible. So when you're thinking about a divorce and making choices, one, realize that divorce can be long-lasting. What does that mean? Don't sweat the small stuff. Leave money on the table. If that's important to you to conserve your budget, your time, your energy, your emotion, your money. You also have to be versatile. You have to know when you can talk or when you can use a mediator or when you might want to do a cooperative divorce if you have trusting counsel on both sides, or maybe where you have collaborative divorces where you really don't know if these attorneys serve your best interest because there's so much money in litigation. You might have them sign collaborative participation agreements, which means if the settlements break down, these attorneys can't go to court. They can't profit off of it. So a lot of these little things you got to think about. All right. In closing, remember, this podcast is for informational purposes only. Please consult with your attorney before acting on the information contained in this podcast. Until next time, be creative, not reactive.